Ano na?
Go, Scott. Simulan mo na.
The Death of a Hero, Module 2.
Text bids.
Recording na po. Ayan. So, The Death of a Hero, Module 2. Padre Pauro witnesses the execution of Rizal or Dr. Jose Rizal. The author, Danton Remoto. I stand on the roof of the Ateneo Municipal shivering on this December morning. Months ago, Pepe came to me in the observatory. I thought we would talk about the stars that do not collide. In the sky, instead, he asked me about purgatory. His cheeks still ruddy from the sudden sun after the bitter winter in the Europe. And on this day, with the years beginning to turn, saltings in my eyes, I see Pepe. A blur between the soldiers with their Mausers raised at the early mornings. Star, still shimmering even if a millions of miles away. The star itself is already dead. So explain na po.
So, I stand on the roof of the Ateneo Municipal shivering on this December morning. So, dito po, si Padre Faura po ay nakatayo sa Ateneo Municipal at siya po ay nilalamig kasi po December morning po and which is taglamig. Next. Months ago, Pepe came to me in the observatory. I thought we would talk about the star that cannot collide. Dito naman po, nagpunta daw po si Pepe sa observatory and akala daw po ni Padre Faura, mag-usap sila patungkol sa mga star na hindi nagko-collide kasi alam naman po natin lahat na si Pepe o ang ating pambansang bayani ay matalino. Next. In the sky, instead, he asked me about purgatory. His cheeks still ruddy from the sudden sun after the bitter winter in Europe. And lastly, dito po nagtanong si Pepe about purgatory. Yung pisngi niya ay namumula-mula dahil sa biglaang pag-init dahil siya ay galing pa ng Europe.
Ayan. So on this day, with the years beginning to turn, saltings in my eyes, I see Pepe. So on this day po, yung araw na po yung sinasabi niya is yung araw po na papatay na po or babarilin na po si Dr. Jose Rizal. At nakita po natin dito na mangyak-ngyak daw po si Padre Paura nung makikita niya na babarilin na po si Dr. Jose Rizal. A blur between the soldiers with their Mausers raised in the early mornings. So nakita niya daw po ng medyo malabo yung mga sundalo, pati po nung kanilang mga barel, na babarilin na po si Dr. Jose Rizal ng umaga noong December 30 at kaya po mas malungkot po si Dr. Power is kaarawan niya rin po ng December 30. Star, still shimmering even if a millions of miles away. The star itself is already dead. So yung star po na sinasabi dito is si Dr. Jose Rizal or si Pepe po. Sabi po dito that star is still shimmering even if a million miles away. So malayo niyo pong nakikita si Dr. Jose Rizal na patay na po. At kahit daw po yung star is patay na, nagsashine pa rin daw po siya. So, yung ibig sabihin po ng star dito is para po si Dr. Jose Rizal. Katulad po ng star na nakikita natin sa langit, lahat po ng stars na kumikinang is hindi po lahat buhay. Yung iba po sa kanila, matagal lang patay, ngunit may kinang pa rin. Parang ganun po si Dr. Jose Rizal. Kahit patay na po siya, yung libro po na ginawa niya na No Limitangere at El Filibusterismo ay magsisilbing liwanag o ningning po sa atin nung panahon na yon para po makalaya sa mga Espanyol sa klase ng kanilang pamumuno na pinaparana sa ating mga Pilipino. And ayun po. Ayun yung the Padre Pauro witnesses the execution of Rizal. Ayun po yung The Death of a Hero. So next na po natin ngayon is si
Wait lang may dumating na Shopee. Wait lang. Mabilis lang. May Module 3 by BJ Patino, it's Apo on the Wall. So this is a reference for for this report is my I mean credits for this report is the http dot birthsnewblog.blogspot.com. So dyan ko po kinuha yung mga information about sa Apo on the Wall. Next. Tayo mo mag-next. So, ayan. Ayan po yung poem mismo. So, there's this man's photo on the wall of my father's office at home. You know where father brings his work, where he doesn't look strange. Still wearing his green uniform and colored breastplates, where to prove that he works hard, he also brought a photo of his boss who he calls Apo. So Apo could, hang around on the wall behind him and look over his shoulders to make sure he's snappy and all. Father snapped at me once, caught me sticking around his office at home, looking at the stuff on his wall, handguns, flakes, a sword, medals, a rifle, told me that that was no place for a boy. Only men when he didn't really have to tell me because, that photo of Apo on the wall was already looking at me around. His eyes following me like he was that scary Jesus in the hallway saying, I know what you're doing. So about the poem. Apo on the Wall by BJ Patino is a poem that talks about the narration of a child's point of view. So, ayun nga daw po, bata daw po yung nagsasalita sa poem about his rigorous father and the hanging photo around the wall called Apo. The poem tells the reality of during the reigning of Marcos alongside with the martial law. It is a reflection of the scenario of what and how the Filipinos experienced the tragic and traumatic event throughout the dictatorship of Ferdinand Marcos in the Philippines. Apo on the Wall shows the real situation concerning with the different perspective between millennial and those who live through martial law. This masterpiece of B.J. Patino advocates reasonably close to the realization of giving importance on looking back to our past, moving forward through our present, and ensuring the success of our future. So sinasabi dito, yung sinulat ni B.J. Patino yung Apo on the Wall about sa karanasan ng mga tao dati sa ginawa ni Marcos sa pagiging diktador niya. Ayan. And kaya niya ginawa to para ma-inform din yung mga millennials about nga din doon. So, gumawa ako ng guide questions para mas lalo niyong maintindihan yung Apo on the Wall. Ayan, number 1, how would you describe the persona and the persona's father? How would describe their relationship? Would you say that your relationship with your father is similar or different? The persona is a child that is curious about the picture of Apo on the wall. His father is strict and works for the government. So soldier daw yung father niya. Their relationship is like a boss and employee because the persona needs to follow what his father wants in order for his father to become happy. Our relationship with my father is similar, but it's just that my father is not strict. Vince, sa ano ko na lang to sa live ko na lang i-explain to i-stop na lang yung video. In lines 12 and 13 in the poem, there is the use of the word snappy and snap, respectively. What do these words mean? How do they add up to the poem in the terms of sound? How do they add up to your understanding of the relationship between the father and the son? So, snappy means to be able to move quickly while being marked by vigor. On the other hand, snap means to utter sharp, bit-biting words. These other words add to the poem sound by providing words that seem to be sounding similar. They aid me up to understand the father was rigorous and even to his son by being particular about following the rules. Who is Apo in the poem? Cite evidence to support the answer. Apo was the boss of child's father in the poem from lines 7 to 9. Apo is powerful and he is none other than the famous dictator himself, Ferdinand Marcos. How would you describe the relationship between the persona's father and Apo? What does this tell us about the father's perspective about martial law? The relationship between the persona's father and Apo is that of loyal servant and a king. This tells us that whatever Apo decided to do, the persona's father will surely follow. What kind of values does the persona's father want to teach to his child, specifically about what it means to be a man? The values that the father wants to teach his child is discipline and respect to the elders and those who are much higher than you, even if they are not around. Yes, I will agree with these values because if we respect others, they will also respect us back. We need to follow the people who have authorities to avoid being reprimanded. Why is Apo compared to the scary Jesus in the hallway? What do they seem to have in common? So, Apo, who is Ferdinand Marcos, is compared to the scary Jesus in the hallway because they are both powerful. His eyes are following me like he was the scary Jesus in the hallway saying, I know what you are doing. It's the line that shows how powerful Apo is. What do Father Apo and the scary Jesus have in common? Father is snappy and loyal person to his Apo who is Ferdinand Marcos. Ferdinand Marcos is like Jesus who knows everything we do because of his power. Read the last line of the poem. What does it mean? How does it regulate the persona's behavior? This connotes the feeling of the Filipinos who were afraid over the power and authority Marcos' dictatorship. Their fear is self-imposed prison that kept them from having their human rights, freedom of speech, and voice of justice. Do you think the persona's perspective about martial law is the same as his father's? Why or why not? No, the narrator was clearly juvenile and shallow. His curiosity was all in. His father once told him that that was no place for a boy, only men. The narrator thought it means so he doesn't roam around and touch his father's things that may injure him. But by analyzing the statement, it probably means more than that. Isn't it at his young age, he can't fully understand what his father was really trying to mean. He can only interpret them literally. Last, how does this poem provide the reader a glimpse of what martial law was like? And how did the poem make you feel? It is a reflection of the scenario of what and how the Filipinos experienced the tragic and traumatic event throughout the dictatorship of Ferdinand Marcos in the Philippines. Apo on the wall shows the real situation concerning with the different perspective between millennial and those who live through martial law. So, ayun lang po yung module ko. Doon na po nagtatapos. Thank you.